So podcasting, yes, the last time you were here, that was right after you actually launched your podcast, and I noticed that back then, you had a huge success with your launching of that podcast, and thought, you have to talk about this. How did you do that? And then, there's so many podcasts being launched probably every day, for all I know. But now you've done it, and you helped a lot of people with it after we actually spoke on the podcast. How has that journey been for you? Because obviously you hadn't spoken about that before. You hadn't helped anybody with launching a podcast, but that has changed, right?
It's really changed. It's so interesting because I never, ever in a million years saw myself teaching podcasting. It was something that was never a part of my vision. Like when I sat down and, worked out my vision for where I want to be 5 years, 10 years from now, etc. Podcasting was never a part of it. Having a podcast, yes, but teaching others
Hmm.
how to have a successful, profitable podcast was like not even remotely on my radar. So when we last talked, we were really just debriefing my own launch and how, like,
Hmm.
how on earth did you get 60 plus 5-star reviews the first week that you launched and chart, and rank on Apple? And that's like unheard of for new
Hmm.
podcasters. Usually we don't see, new podcasters ranking as much as it's these people that have been around forever, who've been podcasting for years and years and years, that are at the top of the charts. So really, to take you from where we left off that conversation and fast forward a bit into what I'm doing now with teaching podcasting, what happened was a lot of friends and business colleagues started reaching out to me, and they were like, Courtney,
Hmm.
how did you do this? Like, what was your secret? Can you walk me through your process for launching your show? Because I've been wanting to launch one, or I'm planning to launch one this summer, or whatever. They had their timeline in mind. And they're like, we want this to be successful. So show me the ropes. So I did. And I
Hmm.
started telling people what I had done. And none of it's rocket science, but it was just a simple process that I had put together for myself that I started sharing with other people. I said, well, these are the steps. Here, go do this. And they would take that and run with it and come back to me, and they would get better results than I did. Some of them were like, wait a second, this was insane. We got over 105-star reviews, and we had thousands of downloads flooding in, and people have been just commenting on the show left and right, how impactful it is. And we're seeing all of a sudden this huge uptick in our sales because of it. We're seeing more people than ever reaching out saying, hey, I heard your podcast. I'd love to set up a call with you or talk with you about this thing. And they were like, this is mind boggling. So then I'm like, okay, wait a second. Like, I must really be onto something here, because if they're getting better results than I even got using the formula
Hmm.
that I had put together, which at the time wasn't even a formula, it was just literally
Yeah, it was
like a
just something
list of
you.
steps, do this. And so I was like, okay, maybe this could really benefit people. This could be something that could help people. And I'm one of those people, Ken, that I can't keep things a secret if it's going to help somebody. I'm
Hmm.
just going to share it with them. I'm not one of these business owners that's like, oh, I've got all the best strategies here and I'm only going to use them for myself. It's really, for me, it's like, it's not worth it unless I share it. And so I put together a small focus group of people. And let's see, that last episode was what, June of 2020, you said? So this was
Yeah.
October of 2020 that I put
Right.
this focus group together. And we had about 14 people in that group. I gave them this formula. They went out and launched their shows. Their shows today, almost 2 years later at the time of this recording, still at the top of the charts, bringing in leads
Amazing.
and sales left and right. They're reaching out to me. One of my podcast coaches, she's a student now turned podcast coach within my group.
Oh, so you have you have a
Yes,
coach
it's
too.
like a
Wow.
whole thing, I'm telling you. And so she reached out and she sent me a screenshot the other day, and she's like, Courtney, look, this is all the countries I charted in just this week. And it was like a list of a dozen countries. And I was like, wow, like, okay. Which felt really good for me to see, because it's not anything that I did. It's not some, fancy
Hmm.
proprietary thing that I put together that I teach that's like so amazing. It's just the fact that, if you really want something and you want it bad enough and you're willing to invest the time and sometimes the money in order to learn
Hmm.
how to do it right, the results that you can have and the headache and the time that you can save yourself on the back end, it's just incredible. And it's so amazing to see these people now who have always had a dream of having a podcast of their own, but had never pulled the trigger for whatever reason: mindset, lack of time, self doubt, whatever it might have been. But
Hmm.
that they got over those hurdles, they executed a plan, and their message, they're now able to reach thousands of people with their message, and the ripple effect that impact has.
Hmm.
And And,
Yeah.
just with one podcast, the hundreds and thousands of people you can reach, much less multiple podcasts. And to just know that I was able to play some very small role in that and in helping them get their start in the podcast space is so rewarding to me, because I really value connection. And at my heart and in my very core, I believe that everyone has a message worth hearing. Sometimes
Mm.
that message is covered up with a lot of noise. And sometimes the noise is a lot of the noise we're telling ourselves as to why people won't listen, or why it's not worth talking about or sharing, or our story doesn't amount to much, or whatever that we're telling ourselves. But everyone has a message, and that message is someone out there is waiting to hear it. They
Yeah.
need to hear it, and they're only going to receive it from you. So I just believe that to my core. And to me, podcasting, being able to utilize this amazing tool, both to help reach the people who need your message and leverage it for business, because that's a nice little bonus when you can get
Yeah.
sales and leads flow from it, right? I'm very much a big part of like leverage and strategy when it comes to business. So to me, it's just such a powerful platform. And it's something that I'm just like stumbled upon and so passionate about. I surprised myself with how much I really love podcasting, like just geeking out on podcasting. But it really is so powerful. And
Mm.
I don't know, that's really the evolution of, from then to now. And now that's what we do. We help podcasters, at least one of the things that we do. We help
Yeah,
podcasters
because that's not the only thing
launch their
you do.
right.
You
No, it's not.
still got still got other things that you do.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's so great to just hear you say that the message needs to be heard. And yeah, there's always someone out there who is dying to hear that there's someone else, struggling with the same things or have a solution for that problem, whatever it might be. So, and yeah, podcasting is a great way to reach out to new people that you haven't. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And often, just thinking about, you have X number of downloads, whatever, but imagine if you put all those people into your house. I mean, you couldn't cram them into even the living room sometimes.
Right.
And but that's also probably something people should need to think about, is that it's not about the numbers necessarily, because some people will just have 50 downloads 1 week, and other will have 10,000 downloads, but it doesn't matter, because your message is getting out there and it's reaching someone.
Yes.
Imagine having those 50 people in your house.
I know.
you know
I know. It's powerful. And
Mhm.
what I like to think about too in terms of podcasting, that I think a lot of people haven't thought of podcasting in this way.
Mhm.
But back when I was first building my business, my son, who's now 4, was an infant at the time. I mean, he was little. And sometimes the only time that I would get a break in the day would be to like strap him in the stroller and say, okay, we're going for a walk. I didn't know how long we would be or how many miles we would walk that day, but we would just go and we'd walk for miles. And during that time, he'd be munching on his snacks or whatever, and I'd be listening to podcasts the entire way
Mhm.
and just learning as much as I could about business, trying to find all the shortcuts that we're always looking for. Okay, how can I do this better? How can I grow faster? How can we generate more leads, more sales, all the things we need to keep our business going? And it just clicked for me one day. And I was thinking to myself, gosh, if all these people who have podcasts are sitting here sharing their wisdom and their knowledge with people in their audience, me being one of them,
Mhm.
and that I'm sitting there learning all of this, gosh, how much do I have to share with people that I could essentially be on the stage sharing? Like, what if a podcast could be the stage that I build for
Right.
myself and
Mhm.
build my own audience to be able to share all of my knowledge and just my life's experiences in business, both as a parent, as a business owner, and being able to share that with others and really helping them in their journey. And that idea, that's all it was. I mean, I wasn't even remotely close to launching a podcast at that point, but it was just this little idea that I tucked away in the back of my mind. And every once in a while, I would think about it. And I was just like, could I be doing more to reach people? And at the time, I was doing so much on social media, as many of us do, and
Yeah.
not seeing hardly any results from it. I mean, doing everything the influencers say. Post more, post every day, post multiple
Mm-hmm.
times a day, do stories. Reels weren't out at the time, but it was just like more, 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 more. And I felt like I was on this hamster wheel of content creation that I could never step off of. Because if I missed a day or if I didn't post, that meant that was a day that went by that I wasn't in front of my ideal client and they would forget about me because I wasn't there in their feed. And so I had this mentality at the time that I had to always be posting, I had to always be creating content. And it really went against my own value of time and
Mm.
utilizing that time well. And I felt like I was just trapped in this cycle of having to do something for the sake of growing my business that wasn't actually yielding a return. It wasn't giving me much in terms of leads and sales. Yeah, sure, I'd reach out and connect with people here and there. People would here and there ask about my programs, but it wasn't like, this influx of people. And I didn't feel like I was really building a community. And so this little idea just kept growing in my mind that, like, what if I pulled the trigger and created a podcast and started building my own audience and going deeper with them than I could go in a 150 word Instagram caption,
Mm-hmm.
and really exploring these ideas and things that I was passionate about and wanted to talk about that I also knew had the potential to help and impact a lot of people. And so when I finally did launch my podcast, I had no idea the doors that it would open and the opportunities that would come from it. And the things that have happened in my business that have happened because of my podcast that would have and could have never happened had I not had a podcast. So
Mm-hmm.
that from that perspective too, it's been really interesting to see how a podcast can be such a powerful tool for business, because I think so often in business we get stuck on this idea of what we think we should be doing because
Mm.
someone
Oh yeah.
else has told us, well, you just have to be on social media. I mean, if you want to grow, you got to show up every day and point to random stuff on the screen and dance and, do lip syncs. It's like, wait a second, I didn't get into business to do this. Like, why am I all of a sudden doing this? And when we can get to the point in our business where we recognize, you know what? I am willing to let go of the things that are not working for me. I'm not going to continue pouring my resources, my limited resources, time,
Mm-hmm.
energy,
Oh yeah.
mental health, not even mentioning money, right? All of these limited resources into something that's not working. And by freeing up that time and allowing yourself to explore other options can be, the possibilities that it can open for you are really incredible. So that's what podcasting was for me. That's what it did for
Mm-hmm.
me, in my own business. And it allowed me to get off of that hamster wheel of just feeling like I was pumping out content every day and really create a community centered around my podcast where I've now built a network of people who are interested in what I have to say. They're interested in learning from me, and they regularly share feedback letting me know that what I'm sharing there is valuable for them.